with more importunity than may seem proper, but that you may rather have more than fewer than you shall want. The proposals you will disseminate as there shall be an opportunity. I once printed them at length in the Chronicle, and some of my friends, I believe Mr. Murphy, who formerly wrote the Gray's Inn Journal, introduced them with a splendid encomium. Since the Life of Browne, I have been a little engaged, from time to time, in the Literary Magazine, but not very lately. I have not the collection by me, and therefore cannot draw out a catalogue of my own parts, but will do it and send it. Do not buy them, for I will gather all those that have anything of mine in them, and send them to Mrs. Burney, as a small token of gratitude for the regard which she is pleased to bestow upon me. I am, sir, your most obliged and most humble servant, Sam Johnson. London, March 8th, 1758. Dr. Burney has kindly favoured me with the following memorandum, which I take the liberty to insert in his own genuine easy style. I love to exhibit sketches of my illustrious friend by various eminent hands. Quote, soon after this, Mr. Burney, during a visit to the capital, had an interview with him in Gough Square, where he dined and drank tea with him, and was introduced to the acquaintance of Mrs. Williams. After dinner, Mr. Johnson proposed to Mr. Burney to go up with him into his garret, which, being accepted, he found there about 5 or 6 Greek folios, a deal writing desk, and a chair and a half. Johnson, giving to his guest the entire seat, tottered himself on one with only 3 legs and 1 arm. Here he gave Mr. Burney Mrs. Williams' history, and showed him some volumes of his Shakespeare, already printed, to prove that he was in earnest. Upon Mr. Burney's opening the first volume, at the Merchant of Venice, he observed to him that he seemed to be more severe on Warburton than Theobald. "O poor Tib," said Johnson, "he was ready knocked down to my hands. Warburton stands between me and him." "But, sir," said Mr. Burney, "you'll have Warburton upon your bones, won't you?" "No, sir, he'll not come out. He'll only growl in his den." "But you think, sir, that Warburton is a superior critic to Theobald?" "Oh, sir, he'd make 52 Theobalds, cut into slices. The worst of Warburton is, that he has a rage for saying something, when there's nothing to be said." Mr. Burney then asked him whether he had seen the letter which Warburton had written in answer to a pamphlet addressed "To the most impudent man alive." He answered it in the negative. Mr. Burney told him it was supposed to be written by Mallet. The controversy now raged between the friends of Pope and Bolingbroke, and Warburton and Mallet were the leaders of the several parties. Mr. Burney asked him then if he had seen Warburton's book against Bolingbroke's philosophy. "No, sir, I have never read Bolingbroke's impiety, and therefore am not interested about its confutation." On the 15th of April he began a new periodical paper entitled The Idler, which came out every Saturday in a weekly newspaper, called the Universal Chronicle, or Weekly Gazette, published by Newbery. These essays were continued till April 5th, 1760. Of 103, their total number, 12 were contributed by his friends, of which numbers 33 93, and 96 were written by Mr. Thomas Warton, number 67 by Mr. Langton, and numbers 76, 79, and 82 by Sir Joshua Reynolds. The concluding words of number 82, and pollute his canvas with deformity, being added by Johnson, as Sir Joshua informed me. The Idler is evidently the work of the same mind which produced The Rambler, but has less body and more spirit. It has more variety of real life and greater facility of language. He describes the miseries of idleness with the lively sensations of one who has felt them, and in his private memorandums while engaged in it we find, "This year I hope to learn diligence." Many of these excellent essays were written as hastily as an ordinary letter. Mr. Langton remembers Johnson, when on a visit at Oxford, asking him one evening how long it was till the post went out, and on being told about half an hour, he exclaimed, "Then we shall do very well." He upon this instantly sat down and finished an Idler, which it was necessary should be in London the next day. Mr. Langton having signified a wish to read it, "Sir," said he, "you shall not do more than I have done myself." He then folded it up and sent it off. Yet there are in the Idler several papers which show as much profundity of thought and labour of language as any of this great man's writings. Number 14, Robbery of Time. Number 24, Thinking. Number 41, Death of a Friend. Number 43, Flight of Time. Number 51, Domestic Greatness Unattainable. Number 52, Self-Denial. Number 58, Actual, how short of fancied, excellence. Number 89, Physical Evil, Moral Good. And his concluding paper on The Horror of the Last will prove this assertion. I know not why a motto, the usual trapping of periodical papers, is prefixed to very few of the Idlers, as I have heard Johnson commend the custom, and he never could be at a loss for one, his memory being stored with innumerable passages of the classics. In this series of essays he exhibits admirable instances of grave humour, of which he had an uncommon share. Nor on some occasions has he repressed that power of sophistry which he possessed in so eminent a degree. In number 11 he treats with the utmost contempt the opinion that our mental faculties depend, in some degree, upon the weather, an opinion which they who have never experienced its truth are not to be envied, and of which he himself could not but be sensible, as the effects of weather upon him were very visible. Yet thus he declaims, "Surely nothing is more reproachful to a being endowed with reason than to resign its powers to the influences of the air, and live in dependence on the weather and the wind for the only blessings which nature has put into our power, tranquillity and benevolence." This distinction of seasons is produced only by imagination operating on luxury. To temperance, every day is bright, and every hour is propitious to diligence. He that shall resolutely excite his faculties, or exert his virtues, will soon make himself superior to the seasons, and may set at defiance the morning mist and the evening damp, the blasts of the east and the clouds of the south.